Hi, everyone. Thank you again for attending what is going to be our final demo day here at CodeU. My name is Shannon Sheehy. I manage the careers team at CodeU. We have a wonderful team of career coaches and project managers and employer specialists who work with our students near the end of their time in the program to help them land jobs. On that note, we are at a little over 1,400 job placements. We're at 1,444 job placements all time, which is a number that we are very proud of. We have been working with students for a little over a decade now, and it's been really cool to see everyone's journeys and just the ways that some of the students have now come back to mentor for us and have really progressed in their career since starting with the program. So we appreciate everyone's continued support of the program. If you are on the call and you're an employer looking for a junior tech hire, please get in touch with us. You can either email Allie, who is our employer relationships manager. It's Allie, ALLI, at codeu.org. You can also email me, Shannon, at codeu.org. We would be happy to learn more about what you're looking for and help connect you to some really great talent. You can also, if you get our emails, you can respond to any of our employer emails. Those responses go back to me as well. This is our final demo day. You may have heard about our program closing, but we are still working with students to get as many hired as possible before the program ends in August. So we have a January 2026 cohort that kicked off at the beginning of this year. Those students are going to have capstone projects due in mid-August. We are also hosting some fun, sort of one-off summer session classes for our alumni. So we have people that are still in classes, folks that are still active, and we would love to connect with you to help get those folks hired. A quick overview of our cohort that just wrapped up that's going to be presenting today. So this cohort started in August of last year and they wrapped up in early April. Pathways included cybersecurity, AI, web development with JavaScript, data analysis with Python, as well as software development with C Sharp. Our presenters today come from the greater Louisville region as well as Eastern Kentucky. We are going to have 5 presentations for you today. There will be a quick Q&A following each presentation. If you do have a question for a presenter, feel free to throw it in the chat. We may not have time to get to all questions, but we're going to try to get to as many as we can. So with that, we are going to go ahead and move into our student presentations. Today's first presentation comes out of our new cybersecurity program. This program is a structured 3-module curriculum that's designed to take learners from foundational concepts through working competency and security operations. The first module establishes the fundamentals, then students transition from concept to applied operations in the second module. The third module expands into deeper security operations work. This program culminates in a capstone project. Students are presented with a realistic security operations scenario. They select an individual specialization track, build a Python-based security automation tool, and produce professional documentation and an executive summary alongside their final presentation. Since that is so robust, what you are going to see today represents just one focused portion of this project rather than the full body of work behind it. So just keep that in mind. So with that, we are so excited to welcome our first presenter, Curtis Harris. Curtis completed the cybersecurity track and comes to us from Louisville. Thanks for being here, Curtis.
Hello, everyone. Name's Curtis Harris. Nice to meet you all. I was part of the 2025 August cohort for Code Louisville, and I'm excited to talk to you about what I have. But a little bit before I get into that, some background about me is that I'm a Louisville native. I was a JCTC grad, and I started off as a student, later to become a cybersecurity student mentor. And I love building a lot of environments at home, home labs. I love building a lot of technology and working with fitness and always doing what I can to learn more and more each day about both cybersecurity and tech around us. The first part of my capstone that I worked on, since it was a two-part, was a log analyzer parser. We had a lot of data to go through, and there was very suspicious hits within that we had to figure out what those were and figure out a way to organize that into data sets that could be easily digested for a cybersecurity team. And I would like to take some points to look at that. Now, with my specific process of building a parser, I had to learn more about counters within the Python environment and utilizing those counters to store data and using that to come back and have that data show up in very specific regards. For example, with privilege escalations, that is giving a user within your ecosystem more power than what they may or may not be allowed to have. And we need to track that. So being able to know how to track that and how to print that for it to be viewed for a team to look at very easily and quickly was something that I had to figure out. And right here, what you can see in kind of the example code that I have here and some of the example printing is kind of showing what that kind of looked like from a perspective. For example, when someone makes a privilege change, that's important to know for your team. And if someone makes a suspicious change, as in changing someone to admin who shouldn't have admin process, that's something you need to track. And then when it comes to printing in a console quickly, meaning that you're able to see it very soon, that is what I wanted to look at and print out for the console for the quick view, which you see in the summary print here. And then secondly, for a document to be printed, a little like text document, that's what the right you were saying there, just as some example for that first log analyzer. Secondly, for the second part of my capstone project, I had to analyze a network's forensics problem. So what that is called is typically using a program like Wireshark to view a onset of data that usually comes from frames. Everything you do on the internet activates through a frame. So from the time you click to the time it actually actuates on the HTML, all of the things that are loaded and sent to you as a user or given back is a frame. And this little piece of that information over a time frame was about 60,000 frames or more. So the problem was, how do we find the needle in the haystack? And I learned a technique from one of my friends at Apple at their cybersecurity development team known as hiding in plain text or hiding in plain sight. And I want to show a little bit of that today for you guys. So the filter that I used for Wireshark is known as data text lines. And basically what that does is it allows you to quickly identify things that come from specific IPs to then give you information about things that that specific IP is doing in plain text, meaning that over unprotected ports, which are things that traffic is sent, such as our port for HTTPS, which we use most every day with everywhere, is 443, or an unprotected version of that, which is port 80, which is what we're looking at now, which is unprotected text, non-encrypted text being sent over. And something that I noticed within 5 minutes, which is really good. It's very good to find things quickly in cybersecurity. I was able to see that there was something being written in Russian. All of the other code is in English, but we have this hit here that's in Russian. That's not normal from a cybersecurity perspective, and so we need to further investigate. And with that further investigation, we were able to find a malicious file. This zip sent through what looks like to be it's sending an IP, which is something normal for communication. They obfuscate it or change what it should normally be to then send a zip file to one of our target PCs. And on top of that, that same thing that hit from looking up data text lines, the 153.92 IP address, was also hit sending information to a website domain known as whitepepper.su. And for those of you that don't know, SU stands for Soviet Union, which is a decommissioned, non-protected, um, perceived to be Russian government owned specific website that is used to send malicious data. So from there, I was able to make a big conclusion that we have our C2 center, which is a command and control center where a malicious entity will operate from, and then they will send these terrible things out to your company to try to gain data. Now, later, what I've learned about is that this specific attack was known as the Luma Stealer, and it happened in January 31st of this year, 2026. And I was really happy to present this to my mentors because I was able to find the C2 Center and essentially work in reverse to show how I was able to get there. Here's an example of just what that looked like. As you can see, we had over 60,000 frames, which I talked about, but I was able to reduce it to eight. And just looking over those eight frames, I was able to immediately find something. This documentation is going to be in my GitHub if you have more interest and seeing what it's about, as well as the Luma Stealer. I have a specific link down here from Nord Stellar that you can look at if you have more curiosities about these kinds of attacks and malware. Once again, thank you all for being here today at the presentation day, the demo day for all of us. I really appreciate what you guys have done here at CodeU, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Curtis, thanks so much for kicking us off and for that great presentation. I know having a cybersecurity class has been a while in the works for us, so it's awesome to see some of the really cool work that's coming out of it. You mentioned this in your intro, but you graduated from the cybersecurity pathway and then returned as a mentor to help the current session of students. So, can you just talk a little bit about how that experience has been so far and how you think it may be able to prepare you for a future role in cybersecurity or in tech?
Oh, absolutely. And I definitely want to speak to the idea of junior and senior in a lot of our developments throughout anything in tech. We need juniors to be able to become seniors so that we can teach our processes as seniors, things that we've learned, experiences that we've gained to further cultivate more and more people interested in the tech field. Because as technology changes and grows, especially in cybersecurity, with new 0 days coming out, new attacks coming out, every day, even at this point, especially with the addition of AI being thrown into the mix, we need more and more people to be present and vigilant in these kinds of things. And the reason why I was so excited to become a mentor is because it's important for us who have gained knowledge and gained skills to be able to make it accessible for those to think, yes, you can do this. Yes, you can be a part of that. And that's something I have Code Louisville to thank for that.
That's awesome. Thanks so much for sharing, Curtis. I know
Absolutely.
we have had so many former students come back to mentor, which is great. I think sometimes there's a little bit of that imposter syndrome that goes along with it, but you've just been through it, you know it, you really can empathize with the students. So I think that's been some of our best mentors, has been the folks that return to help out from the pathways that they themselves took. So we appreciate you presenting as well as giving back to this current class.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much. All right, well, coming up next, we have a presenter from our AI class. Courtney Trong is from Somerset, Kentucky, and is here to present her AI project for us. I'll hand it over to you, Courtney.
Thanks, Shannon. Hey, hello, my name is Courtney Trong. I just wrapped up the January 2026 Gen I course through Code U. Previously, I have also finished the C Sharp .NET software development pathway as well as a React workshop through Code U. I chose Code U because I had just gotten laid off from my previous job and saw an ad for on Facebook for Code U, and I decided to go for it. I felt like it was time for a career change and decided to explore software development and to see if it clicked with me. Um, Today, I'm going to be presenting TravelMate AI. It is my capstone for Code U's Gen AI pathway. TravelMate AI is a conversational travel planning chatbot that uses a multi-agent LangGraph pipeline, a model context protocol tool integration, and retrieval augmented generation to provide real-time travel information and curated destination knowledge. I chose TravelMate AI as my capstone project because I thought it would be a neat way to create a one-stop shop for travel planning. If anyone is like me, I easily get stressed out trying to juggle multiple different apps to look for information while traveling. And sometimes I'm just unsure what I might want to try or do. TravelMate AI helps alleviate those problems for me. TravelMate AI uses React with a Node.js backend. Um, the LLM used is GPT-4o Mini with text embedding 3 small. APIs used are Open Weather Map, Foursquare Places, and Arrow Data Box to enable weather forecasts, restaurant recommendations, flight status lookup, and tourist attraction discovery. Since TravelMate AI is a conversational chatbot, there are many different outcomes based on what you ask the bot. So we're going to take a look at just one conversation example. Um, TravelMate AI is going to start by greeting us with its welcome message. The user then asks TravelMate AI, I'm going to Tokyo on May 18th. Where should I eat and what will the weather be like? TravelMate AI then responds with a weather forecast and lists some popular restaurants in their area. TravelMate AI has 5 tools exposed via model context protocol, but due to intent-driven tool selection, the only triggers tools will be get weather tool and get restaurants tool due to the keywords taken from the user's question. In the user's next chat turn, they then ask if TravelMate AI can give them packing suggestions. This is going to trigger both get weather and get travel guide. TravelMate AI then responds with a full outlook for weather and then relevant info for packing for the user's trip to Tokyo using our RAG travel guide knowledge base. Okay, and next we'll look at the flow of the LangGraph pipeline that TravelMate AI uses to research and respond to the user. When a message is sent, Intake Node will parse the user's message to extract destination, date, and flight number, and detects intent keywords to determine which tools to call. In this example, the user gave the destination and date in the previous chat turn. Next, Research Node will call Research Agent, which connects to the NCP server and selects which tools to invoke. The selected tools are invoked and return raw API responses and information from the RAG Travel Guide knowledge base. Next, Translate Node will call Translate Agent, which uses the LLM to normalize raw API responses into structured JSON to ensure consistent data formats. And finally, Synthesis Node calls the LLM to combine normalized structured data into a single natural language response that directly answers the user's question. I was challenged early on with TravelMate AI with LangGraph compatibility issues. I had to figure out a lot of the issues with getting LangGraph 1.2 to compile, mostly through trial and error since documentation didn't always match the installed version. After getting through the compile errors with LangGraph, I ran into the issue of hitting rate limits with GitHub models. In the beginning, I was having the 3 specialist agents work at the same time. This was causing the app to immediately hit rate limits, so I had to stagger agent calls to the LLM, which with delays, which led to the creation of the pipeline that we just saw and reduced the overall number of calls to the LLM. TravelMate AI was quite a challenge for me, but it was a fun challenge and has turned into being my favorite project that I've worked on so far. I want to thank CodeU for giving me the tools to be able to build something like this and giving me the ability to present it to all of you today. If you'd like to get in contact with me, here is my email and the links to my GitHub and LinkedIn. All right, thanks.
That was great. Thanks so much for presenting, Courtney. I'm trying to plan a beach vacation myself, so may need to connect with you and get some
Yeah, of
tips.
course.
Um, so as you know, and as I'm sure our attendees are well aware, AI is such a buzzword right now. I feel like there's still some ambiguity among developers and companies about how they're using it or if they're using it in any sort of meaningful capacity. So I'm just curious, since completing this pathway, has it changed the way you integrate AI into your daily life, or what does your usage of it look like?
I'm definitely using it as a tool, kind of like an assistant. Like, it's really good to use to help research things. I've been finding it useful to help learn new content. Like I've been trying to learn a little bit about Docker on the side because I just started working with the DevOps class that started this past week. So I was trying to get a little bit of a knowledge base going there. So I was using AI to help with that.
That's great. Well, thank you again for presenting and being here with us today, Courtney.
All right, thank you.
Our next presenter is coming to us from Winchester, Kentucky, James Glosser. James just completed our data analysis course.
Thank you, Shannon. So again, my name is James Glosser, and I'm from Winchester, Kentucky. I recently completed the data analysis pathway, and my project is called Orbital Debris Assessment. A little bit about me. I started learning programming in 2001 with C and C++. I've worked with C# since 2003. Over the years, I've also worked with Java, Python, and JavaScript. I've completed a total of 4 CodeU pathways. I enjoy building web and desktop applications, learning new languages and tools, and I would love to work in the video game or space industry one day. Originally, I joined CodeU because I decided to finally get into the tech industry professionally, and CodeU promotes a very welcoming and supportive atmosphere. I chose the data analysis pathway to put my analytical mindset to work on real-world data problems and also help round out my development skills. I chose this project specifically because I love everything related to space exploration, and I would love to write software or work on something that was actually used in space. Um, from the beginning of the project, I was very interested in what they call Kessler syndrome, which is a theoretical cascading scenario where the density of artificial debris in low Earth orbit becomes so high that collisions between objects cause a chain reaction, generating further debris. I wanted to be able to answer 3 primary questions. When did orbital growth shift from historic linear trends to more modern exponential trends, where the most orbital risk is actually concentrated, and who's contributing the most to that risk? Um, so as far as the tech stack I used, I built this project on a Python and Jupyter workflow. I used Beautiful Soup to automate data collection, then Pandas and NumPy to clean and merge the catalogs into a SQLite database, and then I finally used Matplotlib and Seaborn for the visuals. The data sets I used were the UCS satellite database and the Celestrex satellite catalog, or SatCat. I also used the ESA space environment report as an external benchmark for assumptions and validation. The biggest challenge with this project was the data cleaning itself. UCS contains a lot of formatting issues, missing values, Excel artifacts, and just columns with no real analytical value, whereas the SatCat catalog is a bit more structured but lacks some of the key fields like mass, velocity, and kinetic energy, which I had to fill using a 3-tiered approach. For both data sets, I focused on 3 key areas. Schema alignment, where I removed unused metadata and artifact columns and mapped and renamed columns so both data sets shared the same schema, which was critical for the master merge later on. Data sanitization, where I converted physics fields from strings to numeric values. This involved stripping unit artifacts like kg or km off the end of strings so I could actually perform calculations on the numbers, like for math and kinetic energy, or mass rather. And then categorical normalization. This was vital for my group by operations. I had to standardize different text fields. For example, collapsing 5 different versions of SpaceX spelling into a single canonical name. And then from there, I merged the clean data sets together to create a single kinetic master data set that underwent some final data preparation before being turned into the final SQL database. For my first primary question, my analysis identified that 2014 was the split year. Before this, the orbital population grew at a linear legacy slope of roughly 4.2 objects per year. After this, however, the growth trend shifted to a staggering 35.4% annual exponential rate. At this velocity, the population attract objects has a doubling time of just under 2 years. This means every 2 years, pretty much, we're adding as much hardware and debris to the orbital environment as we did in the entire previous history of spaceflight. For my second primary question, the data shows that collision risk is overwhelmingly concentrated in low Earth orbit. compared to medium Earth orbit and geostationary Earth orbit. Low Earth orbit contains the vast majority of high-risk objects, making it the primary theater for potential orbital disasters. When you actually zoom into the LEO band, we see a massive risk density peak at about 475 km. This is a critical congested corridor where legacy debris, zombie satellites, which are just inactive or defunct satellites that can't actually maneuver, and then modern constellations all intersect. And then for my third primary question, when analyzing who actually contributes the most orbital risk, three operators stood out immediately. SpaceX, which leads the way by a large margin, followed by the Russian Ministry of Defense, and then the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency. Together, those three operators alone account for 854 or 63.3% of all zombie payloads. Building this project really helped show that I'm capable of building clean, maintainable data pipelines. Once I was able to fill, or rather clean, fill, and merge the data sets, I found that one of the most important parts, at least for me, for the process, was the EDA. I explored the data as thoroughly as I could, generating approximately 40 different visualizations, and in doing so, I was able to actually find and fix most of my issues with the data pipeline. If you'd like to connect, feel free to reach out, whichever way is convenient for you. Thank you for your time.
Thanks so much, James. That was awesome. It's always so cool to see the different topics that our students come up with. I think that's really interesting, and that's cool that it's such a personal interest for you. You mentioned this in your intro, but you have completed quite a few pathways with CodeU. Can you just tell us a little bit about how Python compared to those other languages in the learning process of it, what you liked, didn't like, if anything was particularly challenging after going through several other pathways?
Oh, yeah. So, well, learning Python compared to C# or JavaScript, at least for me, was easier. It reads a lot closer to plain English. It hides a lot of the more complicated things behind the scenes, so you can actually focus on solving problems that you're actually there to solve instead of fighting with boilerplate code or the compiler. It's It sounds weird, but I feel like I was abusing things like arrays and stuff. Like Python is really flexible in ways that some of the other languages or type strict languages isn't. So you can get a lot done with like list comprehension in a short, minute amounts of code compared to some of the other languages.
That's really cool. Well, thanks for sharing. I'm glad you enjoyed the class, and we appreciate you presenting today.
Thank you.
All right. Our fourth presenter today comes to us from Louisville and is also a member of the data analysis course. Jesse Garrido, take it away.
Hopefully you all can start. All right, sorry, having a technical difficulty here. I'm not sure what the issue is. Okay, here we go. So yes, my name is Jesse. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today. I'm going to speak about my project this past cohort that was on electrical outages in the United States. A little bit about myself. I'm a proud dad of two teenagers. I'm an electrical engineer. I've been there for about 10 years at the local utility. And all of my favorite work projects are ones where I get to do some coding because I've been coding my whole life. And I am a graduate of a couple of the CodeU pathways in C# development and the cohort that just ended in Python. So my project was really shaped around the central question of whether wealth insulates consumers in the United States from electrical outages. CodeU kind of set out some parameters for the course that involve, identifying data sources and tools and timelines and deliverables. One of which was creating a relational SQL database, and the design of and implementation of that was really what the main and the most fun aspect of working on the project for me, and ultimately ended in generating plots and drawing conclusions from the analysis. So here are the 3 data sets that I pulled from, all from the US government, a database on all recorded outages as reported by utilities from the Department of Energy, also from the Bureau of Economic Analysis, statistics on GDP and personal income at the county level, as well as once it became clear that outages were almost entirely driven by weather events, I thought it'd be interesting to pull in some data from FEMA, so I did that as well. You see here is the crow's foot diagram that reflects the database design, and you'll see it kind of mirrors the data sources with 3 different tables there, and 1 extra that is just the counties, just to hold the names of the counties in the state and their identifier in those tables. I'll say one of the mentors from my class demonstrated a relatively new Python IDE that he uses every day at his workplace, and it's written in Python, unlike Jupyter notebooks. This is an alternative to that one. You use it pretty similarly. You start like any Python project, creating a virtual environment and activating that environment and loading your prerequisites into it. But then you can use this Marimo edit command, and it will actually launch the interface in your browser like this. It looks very similar to VS Code with your file explorer on the left and cells on the right that you can populate with your Python code or Markdown or SQL queries. So moving on to the data, when I looked at it, it became clear that there was a number of ways to count outages, as the number of events, the duration of the events, or the customer hours, like the duration times the number of customers impacted. And so this required, in order to put these all on the same scale to meaningfully compare them, I had to engage in some normalization. So here's a couple of SQL queries that do that. And this is applied to both the state and the county level to generate those data sets. Putting those queries together, and it has helped generate statistics. Used window functions to generate statistics that represent, for every state and county, what percent of outages, for example, out of the total were there. And so I could generate a data frame such as this one that shows those percentages and then put it back as a temporary SQL table from which to query and then create a graph such as this one, where you see those 3 different ways of measuring are all on that same Y scale. And if it's a percent, it still makes sense to compare them to each other. So here's a visualization that reflects the conclusions from my project, and you can see wealth doesn't insulate folks from electrical outages. It correlates to them. And in retrospect, I think that makes sense. Where there is more economic activity, there's bound to be more outages and more exposure to more electrical connections, more exposure to outage events. So the conclusions from my project, along with that point, I thought another item that was really interesting was to see how perspective really frames the data. Even looking at this chart, the trend is kind of obvious from here, but it took some zooming in and playing with the parameters to really see that trend. And also where I work, a lot of folks are using R, and I had never gotten to use Python before, but I understood that R and Python were similar. My experience after the cohort is that Python is way better and way more fun, in my opinion. And that's all I have. I appreciate everybody's time today, and here's where you can get in touch with me if you'd like to.
Thanks so much, Jesse. That was an awesome presentation. You mentioned a few things kind of early on about how it was maybe tricky to figure out like what to even track or how to determine what you were going to use as your parameters. Can you talk about what maybe the biggest challenge was in creating your analysis?
Sure. I think the biggest challenge was also the one that was the most fun for me, was trying to turn, once I had mapped what I wanted my relational database to look like, trying to turn my raw data into that. So that was a function of just a process of just developing those functions. So it's kind of like solving a puzzle. That's what I enjoyed the most.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I love that your biggest challenge was also one of your biggest joys. That's awesome. I think that really set you up well for a career in tech. Thanks, Jesse. All right. Well, last but definitely not least, we have Andy Fields. Andy is coming to us from Corbin in Eastern Kentucky, and he is a graduate of our web development course. Andy, take it away.
Thank you so much. Let me get this shared here. There we go. Hi, everybody. My name is Andy Fields. Once again, as Shannon already said, I am a graduate of the web development program from CodeU. I live in Corbin, Kentucky, and I wanted to show you my project that I built. It's Bujo.io. But why did I pick CodeU? I picked CodeU because I was at a time in my life where I was between jobs. And instead of just looking for another 9 to 5, I wanted to go out there and find something that was actual meaningful work and something that I could be proud of. Uh, so a friend of mine introduced me to the idea of getting back into web development. I hadn't done it in about 20 years, and it's changed quite a bit. So CodeU gave me the resources that I needed to be able to do it on a professional level and the structure that I needed to have to learn it. So what is Bujo.io? Well, basically, Bujo.io is something that I built based off of the bullet journal. And the bullet journal is an analog system that I've been using to manage my ADHD and organize my life for a while. Uh, it's an analog notebook that I carry around with me. It's got a bunch of different rapid log features in there where, it's got its own little symbols and everything like that that you can use. But one of the things that I found with using the bullet journal that I didn't like was that it wasn't exactly portable because carrying a notebook with you all the time is not really a feasible option sometimes, especially if you're in a professional setting. But I did think about the fact that we always usually have some kind of screen with us, whether it's our phone, a desktop, anything like that. So I built Bujo.io to be portable. And basically, I just built a vanilla web app that was based off of JavaScript, HTML, and CSS. So let's go ahead and I want to show you guys what Bujo.io looks like. When the user first arrives on the screen, they're going to be greeted with a clean and focused landing page. If you click Get Started right there and you've never been to Bujo.io, it's going to take the user to a setup page. And from there, they can get started using Bujo. Now, this video is a little bit quick, and I apologize for that, but I wanted to make sure that I didn't take up too much time. So yeah, click and get started. You can go in there, put in your name, select your time zone, select your visual preferences, and you can see that there's all sorts of different visual preferences, but I like dark mode. When you go in there, you're going to go directly to your desktop, to your dashboard there, and then you can transition over to your today page where you can start putting in your notes. So I just put in a to-do there that is just talking about getting ready for demo day, but I can also put in an event that I need to remember. And I actually have a date selector put in there as well. And then I can also create memories in there of things that I need or that I want to keep track of. And there's also the option to add a bunch of holidays in there that may be upcoming. So we're back on the dashboard page, but we can also go into these different views of week, month, year. There's also an archive page that you can view that can show you things that you've already done in the past. You actually from the dashboard, you have the ability to go and edit any one of those bullet items that you've put in. There's also a link on there to the About page and the Settings page where you can go in there and change any of those preferences if you decide that you like something else better. And one thing that I did want to go ahead and show you guys as well is that it does have a mobile view because, like I said, I want to be able to use this from a phone screen. And I really like the mobile view. I loved getting to add the pop-up menus in there and just really make this thing customizable for every need that you may have. So let's go ahead and talk about, there we go. The biggest challenge that I ran into while I was building this app. And the biggest thing that I ran into was a time zone issue that took me a while to even realize that there was a bug there, because the data itself was correct the entire time. When I would make an entry, I found out that they were saving the right date, but they were displaying 1 day behind. So a May 25th entry would show up as May the 24th. And the root cause was in JavaScript's date constructor and how it handles plain data strings. So when you pass a data string like 26/5/25 to a new date, JavaScript just assumes that it's, midnight time UTC, and it converts it to the local time. In Eastern time, midnight UTC would be 8 p.m. So the display date shifted back a day. And the fix was to stop using the date constructor for the display entirely. Instead of parsing the string, I just read the characters directly using slice and replace, which gave me the formatted date I needed without any time zone conversion happening at all. 3 lines of code once I understood what was actually going wrong. So what I learned, not just from this project, but from CodeU, but this project, it taught me a lot about the development process. And one of the biggest things that I learned was the importance of using my available resources effectively, whether that included, reaching out for feedback, researching solutions, and I even collaborated with some AI tools just to get different inputs and views on how things could be done. And it helped me move past those blockers faster and improve the overall quality of the project. I also learned that I am most productive when I'm working on problems that have a clear purpose and a practical use case. That made it easier for me to stay engaged and continue refining the application beyond the minimum requirements. Um, from a technical standpoint, this project reinforced how important debugging was and root cause analysis, uh, also in a software development or a web development platform. There were several situations where the code appeared to be correct and the actual issue came from the underlying implementation that I was trying to use. The time zone bug was a good example of that. um, Once I identified how the dates were being interpreted and formatted, the fix was pretty straightforward. And the difficult part was tracing the behavior step by step to understand where the inconsistency was happening. But overall, I think this project actually helped me work on some of my problem solving skills, and I really enjoyed it. So, what I want you to know, what I want a potential employer to know, is that I want you to know I'm going to use every tool that's at my disposal to get the job done, whether that's reaching out to coworkers, reaching out to peers, mentors, documentation, AI, whatever it is. I plan on using it because I want to meet not only my goals, but your goals as well. And I want you to know that I'm a problem solver, that I will think of everything I can to make something better. I bring the same commitment to coding and to learning web development that I've brought to every single leadership role that I've ever held, and I don't give up when the things get tough. So, once again, I want to thank you guys for allowing me to present this project that I really, really enjoyed working on. And I want to thank CodeU for the opportunity to learn, because that's something I want to continue doing the rest of my life is learning. If you guys want to reach out to me, I've got my email on the screen as well as a link to my LinkedIn profile and my GitHub portfolio. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks so much, Andy. That was awesome. I think when we see projects that have a really practical application, that's such a cool thing. And I know students put a lot of thought and effort into that. And that's cool that you created something that you can actually use. I myself was a planner girl for a long time, but it's tough. I like having things on my phone. So I think Bujo is a really cool product that you came up with. Well, you ended your presentation by talking about some of your transferable skills. And I know you've had a lot of like customer facing and leadership type roles. Can you just talk a little bit about how those, your communication, how you think those skills are going to benefit you in a tech role?
Yeah, so I've had several years working in uh, leadership type positions where I worked as a store manager for close to a decade. And in those roles, it helped me develop really strong communication skills, problem solving skills, and teamwork skills that I personally think will transfer very well into tech. Um, Working in retail management taught me how to explain technical information clearly and adapt quickly and stay organized when I'm under pressure. Uh, it also strengthened my ability to troubleshoot problems and really just find ways to think outside of the box, not only to help myself, but to help the people that I was working with or the people that were working for me. It also gave me a user focused mindset, which I think it taught me to go beyond functionality and consider how real people interact with a product, which is valuable when you're building applications and trying to improve the user experience.
That's awesome. Thanks so much, Andy. I think those are all really great transferable skills. I agree. I think they will definitely set you up well. And thanks for presenting with us today.
Thank you.
Well, that was our final presentation. I just want to thank everyone, all of our presenters for doing such a wonderful job. I want to thank our mentors and employer partners and community partners who are on the call, as well as our current students. I know you all are working really hard, and we appreciate you taking some time out to support folks who just completed. For our employer partners on the call, I will follow up next week with an email that has a recording of the event, as well as a link to the resume folder that we put together, so you can have some resumes from our presenters. We also have a grad database that our graduates can opt into that's full of active job seekers. So I will be sure to share a link to that as well. I'm going to be traveling the next few days, so it will definitely be out next week. But if you would like to get connected to anyone in the meantime, feel free to shoot me an email, shannon@codeu.org, and I will be happy to do that. Thanks so much, everyone. Again, we are sad that this is our final demo day, but it was so great watching all of the fantastic projects, and we appreciate all of the continued support that the program has gotten. So thanks so much, everyone, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.